Recording in progress.
We do have a club, so if we can stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Call to order the May 21st, 2025 Lower Southwood Township Communication meeting. Thank you all for coming tonight. Some of you are coming from the fair, so give a little promotion if anybody watches this. Oh, absolutely. We'll let you participate tonight. Thank you for coming. Okay. All right. Our first order of business will be the call to approve the minutes from the April 16th, 2025 meeting. I did have a chance to look them over. I also watched the video, but I was not here. So I don't know. I should abstain, but do we have, I did see it, but I will probably abstain since I wasn't here. So I asked, hopefully everybody checks them. Is there any errors or corrections that we have? We actually would not have a quorum, I realize, if I abstain. So yeah, I can't abstain. I guess we could talk as a committee. I did watch the video and I went along with the agenda. It seems pretty accurate to me, but I will trust that if you have anything else to add.
It went out by email.
The one that we have by email, I have a copy of it as well, this one. So the April 16th, 2025, if everybody got to see these. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as posted in the email? Terry, second. John, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Approve the minutes. Which our next order of business would be call for public discussion and visitor comments. I will tell you that Rob did let me know that he had something that he wanted to share with the group. He asked me, if it would be okay. I honestly just told him I was coming from a open house, Salford Hills, so I did not have a chance to look at it, but I said, absolutely, go ahead and present it. I think everybody would be okay with that. And since we do have some business, if it's appropriate now, if you want to share that with us now, please, Rob. Thank you.
Still a member of the public, so this is my time to shine. So what I did was, over the last month, put together, and this is again, as an outsider, as a new resident, right? For somebody who has not seen what, how the township divides itself into cohorts. These are some things that I thought about in terms of how you would identify different personas that represent people who make up the township. So this is a tool that we used in marketing, called, like I said, called a persona, and it allows you to put a face and a name on a category of person when you're creating some system to communicate with them. So the 5 ones that I have here are longtime neighbor, new to town family, connected commuter, which Jeff would probably appreciate here, local entrepreneur, bringing in kind of the business element of the committee, and residential facility senior. And so as you read through here, and I'm happy to share this with anybody and post it as whatever. Everybody's got a different type of involvement, informational needs, tech savvy, and then some other traits that distinguish them as a member of the community. So I wanted to put this forward as a starting point. This is by no means an accurate 100% representation of how the township is, but I think it's a good guide. So when you talk about, oh, should we focus on an Instagram? It's like, well, you're leaving longtime neighbor Terry out, and you're probably leaving residential facility senior Rita out because they're not going to see the Instagram feed, but they would see something that was presented to them in paper or a newsletter. So it's a tool for discussion where you're not always thinking about your own perspective when you have these conversations about what to offer people and how they're communicating with the township.
It's great, Rob.
This is great, yeah, great.
I'm just reading, and it's funny, I'll say there's a typical synopsis, but it really does sum up somebody that I can picture each one of these, easily I can think of a neighbor or somebody who would be doing that. Like the phone buzzes all day, they're gonna miss those things. Right. With somebody else, oh, here we go.
I personally understand the new to town family, right? That's the energy that I bring here. But it's not not, it's easy to forget in these conversations that that's not the only perspective that there is when we're having these conversations. So hopefully this is a useful tool. We can, build on it. And if anybody has any feedback for that, I'm happy to take it on.
I love this. I'm actually really curious to even, I'm thinking as my head's like, ooh, and I think this is great. I definitely want to look this over. I'm definitely up for putting this on the agenda to have a further discussion with and going with this, but this is a great idea. I think, as you explained, how you can classify things, because I think that would really help us when we go one way. It's easier to say, not, oh, well, everybody do that, or not everybody does that. We say, okay, but what about the Johnsons, or what about Carlos, and that's, or whatever we want to call it, A, B, C. It's a great way, I think, for us to convey what we want to achieve. I think, even watching the conversations from the last meeting, I think that this would be something that could have come in handy. And I have this idea with that. Any other comments?
Yeah, I think this will really help us with our goals, where we want to go with the committee too, by looking at each of the different areas. Yeah, I think it's gonna be really helpful.
Do you notice anything missing when you look at this, when you look at these 5 identities? Do you think of somebody who you know or associate with or communicate with that falls outside of that range?
I have one. I didn't until you said that. I'm like, no, but I was thinking of all my neighbors growing up, and I know there's a couple on our block that would go away for the winter and come back summer. They actually there's one family, and we always knew that because they would do it in the wintertime, and just we just knew that they would tell us to look after that, keep an eye on their house. It's one thing I can think of. I don't know if there's, and I'm sure there's might be multiple people who might do that. And it might not be, wherever they go, it might not be the winter. It might be to go away in the summer to visit their family. Maybe they're in a profession that they can do that too.
The only thing I would say is maybe for generations, some people don't even know that township is a thing.
Yes.
Very true. So it's
Very-
not necessarily involvement 0, information need. They might feel like they don't need it.
But do you think that would be different from Carlos there as well? Because I kind of put that in there, but now that I'm reading Carlos more detailed, it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I realized Grace, you can attest to this perhaps better than I, but when I was going to the residential facilities, one of the conversation, I'm not sure if you were here, we realized when it was funny, like, wow, this didn't occur to us that so many people at, one of our facilities, right in Main Street, I don't know if it was Mark Twain, one of the others, had no idea that we had a pool. And we were talking about it in our meeting, but the thought occurred, well, it's very easy if you live right in front, Mark Twain, anywhere, or even just, Ruth Court, you might just commute there. And if you're younger, you just finish college, or heck, you just got a job in the area, you come here, you sleep there, you might eat there, but then you're getting right back on the turnpike and you're out of here. And that's why so many people would come eventually when they have something to do, and be like, hey, is there a pool in town? And they're not in town, so that's a great one.
So we have the snowbird. We have the late teen, early 20 persona.
Could be any age, but yeah, the persona is it out, right?
Then
Or yeah, I would say one.
Adult.
Young adult.
And there's also the risk of adding too many, right? Because then you have overload, you're shuffling these cards around the table going, oh, we're not servicing this group well enough, when maybe that is close enough to a connected commuter that you're like, hey, if we have small soundbite type things, that serves the same effect as directly to that particular cohort.
I like how you put too, you know, one thing I noticed is that as I was glancing through the residential facility, the values large print materials. That's not something that we really touched too much about of different ways. And, you know, we explored people might be quick to use technology or paper, but, you know, obviously there are some, you know, there's some people that need other means to help them as well. And that's something that we can consider as
We've talked a lot about the residential facility renters that aren't necessarily senior.
It's
They
true.
fit
It's
this. And I think we talk about it a lot, and I don't think it's reflected here. Residential facility renter or just renter, or call it a temporary resident or something like that.
Absolutely. And there are people, I lived in an apartment briefly too, and one of our neighbors was there for 30 years. You know, and you're right, it doesn't have to be somebody in a residential facility per se. Thank you.
It would also be an interesting exercise. We already have the list of communication channels that we had. I don't know, what's on there, 10, 12, what, something like that. To do a grid between that and the personas and be able to see, okay, well, these personas tend to use these communication channels. So if we do something through these communication channels, you know, we're really hitting these personas. So we talk about whether it's hard copy or email, but that cross section between these personas and the various known communication channels.
Right.
I think it's a great idea to do it that way. I think it'll be easy to see where we're falling short, what we're doing well.
And I don't know if we would want to, and the only other thing is I'm trying to see if there's any other kind of personalities or groups would be maybe, would we ever want to separate family active kids in school as opposed to family, you know, no kids or maybe, you know, grandkids on occasion because their lives are different, you know, in different ways.
Do they just evolve as a persona from new to town family, the one time neighbor, right?
You're right.
They have from one
Well, you're
to
right,
another.
you're right, you're right, that's true.
You know, and in 20 years, longtime neighbor Terry is not gonna just have a PC, it's gonna be me in 20 years. So, you know, there's gonna be a level of tech savvy that's gonna evolve along with this stuff, just because that's the way the world is working.
That's great. And again, I'm having ideas go through that. I know we've gone on a really good tangent, like not bad tangent, but I think, I definitely want to write some stuff down, think this over some more as well. Thank you for all this work on this, Rob. I like that, Rob Carlson for LST Communication Committee. We're pulling for you.
It's not a campaign. An indication of it.
So did you start from scratch? Did you professionally, you know, did you have certain personas that you kind of started with and then tweak them to fit, you know, the community, or did you ask an AI?
Yeah, so some of this came from my experience just in digital marketing to different cohorts like this, but a lot of it is I've tossed a ton of resources into AI about the township, and there was a lot of garbage that came out, but from that garbage, these personas emerged with a little massaging. So yeah, you can kind of see some elements of that in there, some things that may not exactly fit. But yeah, this is a little bit of professional experience, a little bit of AI, a little bit of everything I've collected over the last year.
Questions, good information.
How the tool should be used.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any other comments, questions? I'm definitely in favor of putting this even next month on the agenda to talk about it a little more. We'll get some more opinions from Harry and Jess as well. And, sure I'll have more questions as well. This is great. I really can already see how we can implement this. Thank you for bringing this, Rob. Very good, everyone. Thank you. All right, moving on. I was searching for that, so here we go. Old business. So I do finally have some updates on our amend resolution number 2020-29, adding associate members. In front of you, hopefully everybody has a copy of this, which is red letter, but there is some highlights on here that I wanted to talk to you about. So as we saw, I brought, I put together just an amendment that, I looked on other townships, found different examples, and we discussed how we wanted to have an associate member. From then, it did go to the township solicitor to look it over, offer any kind of recommendations. This is what is brought forth in front of us today. I did talk with I brought it to the board this morning. I told the board that there was something I want to go over with you, which I'm going to discuss as well, but asked if they had anything else to say. And we wanted to kind of get the consensus of this committee before we move it forward and bring it to the board for a vote to make this official. Should get Rob officially on here, but also anybody else interested as well. The thing I did want to bring up is the highlighted, as you can see, residents. When I originally put this together, I did kind of copy from other different things and, thought of different ways that we could do. And I do remember keeping business members in here with the idea that, as we discussed early on, and we still continue, we're trying to have business involved with who would like to display something and hear their input. The lawyer pointed out, and it was good move here, that we should probably clarify whether we want resident members or resident and or business members. If you notice though, if we look at D, the new option for D, this talks specifically about the, it talks specifically about the associate members here as well. But one thing that he said is we can keep it there. We can decide if the associate members, actually associate members is below it, but he said that we can decide that we can do it this way. He might reword it. So I apologize, but on E where we have associate members, he said one thing we could consider is having the opportunity for a business member and or a resident to be an associate member, and then have residents be the members. He said the way that it's worded now, we really wouldn't have to change anything if we wanted to keep it that way, because it technically would keep it open for associate members. The board is okay with whatever we think is fit. As I said to the board, I trust this committee, and I would rather hear the committee's opinion, and I'm open to however we want to do that as well. And so the main question would be from us, first of all, if there's any other questions with this before it goes to the board. But in regards to resident members, do we want to allow residents only to be on as is similar to our other committees? Or will we also allow somebody who might be a business manager in the township as well to also be a member of this committee? Or we can have residents and or business members as associate members only, or just residents. Hope I conveyed that correctly there. Layman's term from what I heard and interpreted. So pretty much our big question is residents or business, please.
My rough cut is take anybody we can get.
We do.
I think it would be great if we had a business owner, whether they're a resident or not, just to bring that element of thought process, into the mix.
And perspective. of how
Perspective. Perspective into the mix. But yeah, I think we should, not box ourselves into the corner. If we get somebody who is a non-resident business owner who wants to be part of this, great.
Yeah, especially if they have an inclination to help promote any way we can, whether they put on their signs, their business as well. I'm definitely open to that idea as well. One thing I could point out too is, and it's, I think we know this too, but when it comes down to it, it would be the board's decision, who's picked either way. So, they might decide, hey, we want to go with a resident over a board member, or maybe the committee might say, we really want this perspective too. Any other takes on this or opinions on this as well?
I agree with having it. It would be interesting to have a business member on the committee. However, I think maybe at the associate level and not as like a,
Not as a
I'm just
voting
seeing
member.
how it would be perceived with the rest of the residents of the township. Where we have, because potentially we can have all business people on and their residents,
Yes, absolutely. That's why I said we would have to be on board. But no, that's a great point as well. I didn't think of the hypothetical part, but Yes. And just that, I also think is a good idea as well, but the idea, just to reemphasize as well, is that an associate member would not be able to vote, but would be very active as well in all communication, which would give us the perspective and maybe keep that, preserve that as well. Another thought.
Just from looking at the perspective of the residents of the township, they look at the committee, then it's like, there's no resident on this committee, it's all
Yeah,
businesses.
But if you don't, if you don't box yourself in with language here, I mean, as Kevin said, ultimately, it's the commissioners who say who's on the committee or not, right? So if they feel that a non-resident business person would not be a good representative, a voting representative, ultimately, it's their decision. Right? It's not like anybody can come in here and say, hey, I want to be on the committee and I'm a non-resident business, so you have to put me on kind of thing. There is a little bit of a check and balance there. And you want to box yourself in with language or allow the flexibility in the language and allow people to make the final decision as to what's right.
I liked what you're saying there too. One thing I want to add to that to keep in mind too is, for me, I would maybe side resident, that's what I'm thinking, but sometimes we've been fortunate with communication, the board's been fortunate with communication committee, whereas we had a lot of applicants. But oftentimes when I've had an opportunity to look over board members, we have one, and that's the ultimate choice. So if we did just have one business, then another one person business, just hypothetically, I wanted to put that out there too, but that's another concept to think of. Rob, any opinion on this? I know you're an observer, but you're welcome to discuss here too.
Just curious, the highlighting, is
Yes,
that just for our,
I think it was for
that
our,
anything to do with the redlining or just?
no, I believe that's specifically what the solicitor wanted to point out and
Got it.
discuss. So we each went over it with me right before our meeting and mentioned that as well.
So the red is what he added.
The red would be added, and as you can see, some of the wording was a little different. That complements, if we wouldn't have to. So for example, I'll just read the first one. In order, it used to read, where in order to assist with such communications, the Board of Supervisors finds that it is in the best interest of the township and its citizens to establish. Instead, it would be, in order to assist with communication, the Board of Supervisors established a township committee. So we're kind of retroacting, since it's a little different there. But that's how you can see what is added. And then the next one, and I will say for the camera's sake as well, and whereas in furtherance of the goals of the Communication Committee, the Board of Supervisors desires to create a category of members of the Communication Committee to be known as associate member. And that's where we go on from there. So it is blue, but I'm not sure why some is blue and some is red, but that's, I took it as all added there. And then where we go, the member shall consist of 7, we had 2 10. 5 residents and up to 3 associate members. And by adding the extra category, we do change the lettering of some of the other ones to keep it in succession. C becomes D, you add an E, and then D becomes F. E becomes G.
And even in E, you see that language where, each appointed associate member, well, that's okay, that's specific associate.
Yeah.
Each.
So again, it will come down on us which way we would want to go. Another thing we could do is this wouldn't be, so this would probably, if this did come to the board and the board seemed okay collectively, I think Grace will say everybody's kind of on board with this, going with what direction we want to go because they're okay with their decision. In our next meeting, the next meeting would be coming up at the first Tuesday of the month. I'm not sure what date that is, but thank you. Around June 3rd, yes, 3rd, 4th, that week. But if this is something, and I think it might be worthwhile because, I value everyone's opinion on this, that we could, I didn't want to explain it too much in an email, but we could definitely, get Harry and Jess's opinion as well, whether they want to watch the video or, we can send them the information and even via email, get a consensus, because I would like to get this, as soon as we can. And it still wouldn't be right away. It would be advertised and then, vote, I would think. That said, we want to get as associate members. And it wasn't just Rob as well. We did have a couple people reach out, and I think knowing that they have the opportunity and might be interested again. I would be open, whatever we want to do, but I'd be open to sending them an email and seeing what their consensus is and kind of confirming up together. But if there's any other discussion we'd like to have or delay, we're welcome to continue that if we feel that that's necessary too. I like both options, Terry. I think you make a great point. I think John makes a good point too. I'm really indecisive right now. I'm curious, and I could go either way. I originally liked the idea of everybody, and then later on I thought, you know, having the associate would be a good opportunity too. Right now, it's easy to say because we have a lot of people interested. You know, if we don't, that would be something where you say the language might be different, but we've been okay with having vacancies, for getting them filled in one way or another, even if there is a delay. So that's something else to consider, and that's just out of residence. We are the communication committee, so I hope we would make a good push to let people know there are vacancies too. But again, I want to hear, you know, if Harry and, you know, Jess have the same say as, you know, I'm liking the business idea, then yeah, I can lean that way. I can lean either way right here. It's really, I'm either way.
Have you received any, do you have any indication that a business owner or representative would be eager to participate in that percent?
I have not heard. I definitely make sure I mention our meetings. We always give an update at the board, and I update with the communications committee, but I definitely emphasize when we have businesses, and often we do in our meetings, I say any members of the public or, you know, businesses who are interested in learning more and how they could help. And honestly, when I see businesses, I probably do talk it up a little more, but no, unfortunately, I haven't heard of any. I don't know if there's any at the office.
We collect volunteer forms. And I haven't seen any businesses come in, but there are a handful of residents who are always interested, so.
That's wonderful to hear. Presence.
One last thing, please, me, this E becoming G section would spells out the experience and desirable skills. Is there any thing that could be added, or like, I have no problem with it because it looks like my resume. Like, is there something, is this limiting in any way, or is this really just kind of a thing that says, this is an ideal picture that we're painting, and keep this in mind as you apply?
It's funny because I saw the date on this. So this was October of 2020. I was new at January, so this was very new to me, but I do remember this one specifically, like saying, oh, this is what we need. And I made sure to put, I remember the preferable was the word. However, yeah, I mean, that was the idea of what could we do to really get this going and whatnot. And I may have taken some opinions too, but I think you're right. I don't want it to sound like, oh, I guess I'm not good enough for a committee like this, because if you're a resident, you're good enough. You know, you might be the Johnsons and Terry, and Emily. We want to hear from Rita. You know, that's important. So maybe that's a good point, Rob. If we could recommend to add a sentence to say, but these are no way requirements, would just be simple enough, and I can definitely pass that on if anybody else has a take on that.
I think it's a very good point,
It is
because
a
when I
good point.
first came on the committee, I looked at that, I was like, oh, no, I'm not, and then Jean actually talked me into it. So,
Well, we wouldn't be the same without your contribution. So that's a great point there too.
yeah, so I think, yeah, I'm gonna try to word it that way.
John, do you agree that that might be wise to just add not required, but all residents are welcome or qualified?
Yeah, it's, you know, the wording, I mean, it has preferable in there, it has desirable skills, not required skills. You can find the right word to kind of.
Yeah, and I'm sure
Open it, yeah.
if I tell our solicitor to give us an idea soft, then I'm sure it doesn't change anything too dramatically.
Desirable skills, but not necessary, like something
Yeah,
like.
yeah. Maybe just one sentence that, while these are preferable, all are welcome and encouraged to
Yeah,
attend.
skills are not necessary.
You can read or write, you're in.
As long as you can communicate,
Right.
we'll write it for you, yeah.
Right.
Okay, yeah, well, I think those are great points with that. And as I said, I think it's important that we follow up as soon as possible with the rest of the committee to see their take on that, because that is something that we want to get moving. I think everything else, any other questions, or if anybody sees anything else till that point, they can let us know as well, but.
So one thing,
Yeah.
sorry, we can have like 5 residents and up to 3 additional associate members. We could have potentially 8 or 10,
They
I'm
expand
confused, like how many-
They expand the range,
like under A, membership in terms.
so it's,
One employee, 5 members, gives you 7 plus 3 more. That could be
Okay,
3
okay.
more non-voting, that could be.
So 3 non. So far we have 4 residents and no associates, correct? Kevin, you and Grace, correct?
Yes,
So we have 1 opening then for.
going else.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
the-
Carol, so
you're
member of.
member of the board. He's member of
Yeah,
the
I
board.
think that technically,
So,
well, is that something we want to make sure we have for, as something that is a good point, I think, when we see it, I was.
well, I'm just thinking, if
Yeah.
you want to be a full member, or we have an
Yeah,
opening.
technically, you're speaking, I think you're right there, Terry.
Sounds good.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
let's look into that, that's
So we
something
would
that
have to
I
really
realized.
like, yeah. You could be a
Yeah.
full member.
It's kind of.
Not my decision,
I mean-
but I'm happy with it.
Now, if that is the case, are we still okay with that number? Because maybe we would not, one of the reasons, we don't want to go too much with the associates, keeping it around 7, but that would be 8. Very good observation. Well, we'll see what the solicitor has to say about that. Anything else? Or have we asked anything else? Rob's on every meeting in the mornings as well, so maybe you will get to see yourself nominated at our next meeting for this good.
Taking it in.
Very good.
Information.
And it says up to, I'm sorry, it says up to like 3 members, but we don't have to do 3 additional associates.
We don't, and that's what I'm
If
saying, if
it's
we
up
want
Too
to,
much, yeah.
I'm open to whatever anybody feels. Again, we
Yeah.
don't have everybody chomping at the bit, so but we don't want it to be too crowded
Right.
as well. Clearly, the more opinions we have, but,
Yeah, and also we don't have to do all 3 at once either. Do you know what I mean? It's,
right, and that's why it's up to, I think with the wording that would be understood.
yeah.
At least I should say that it was conveyed that that's how we were doing it when they worded it, so I think that that's good. Very good.
Rob, and then
Yes.
we have our 5 members and then.
If I get advance notice, I would definitely be there in person.
Very good. Any other questions or comments on the resolution amendment? Okay. Moving on, thank you, everybody. The next one was the final approval of distribution plan of volume 3 of the township quick reference. So I did, I was not at the meeting, but I did hear the discussion. I have a copy of both, and please correct me if wrong, but there are some of the major updates. Hopefully everyone had fun. Was changing the scouting BSA, the Scouting America troop. Oh, he wrote them down. Very good.
I highlighted the changes to.
Very
further
good.
in there.
Very good. And I saw these done as well. And I'll just go over these two just so we can make sure. 91 URL, the spell Harleysville. Formerly, the senior center has become the senior center. QR code, top right, sure we have it correct, which takes us to the correct quick reference page. Additional contact links, the correct link. Contact directly, I wrote down, I think, but then the index for the 91st, or for the Troop 91 and Troop 137. We don't need to keep all the unnecessary index.htmls. Freedom Valley Medical Center, rescue, consistency we were looking for with the color. I think you mentioned it was blue. And then there was additional one mentioned, the scouting. We had a slash. And last one was QR on the bottom. Oh, these are the ones I added. I'm sorry. So these were the ones we had there. Anything else that we had? All right. Looking at the new one, I think it looks great. I had just two things of question. As I saw the scouting on the top, there is one extra slash. Is that, I figure you might know Rob or somebody else, if that's necessary, I didn't try it out.
I'm not sure at that point.
And I'm not too worried about it, but I know it's discussion, if it's a quick backspace, that was just sometimes, or
On the end?
on the Harleysville, the last Harleysville with the slash.
Probably fine without, but it.
Either way is fine with me, I didn't know. The only other,
It always depends.
this might have been on anyone else's, but I think the QR code on the bottom might be a little cut off. I could not get the link to work. And I noticed it worked on the other one, so. I would just-
You need all three of those.
Okay, I figured it might be the printing, I wasn't sure with me, I printed it at home.
Yeah, when I printed what you sent me at home, it worked fine.
Okay,
Yeah, you don't have all three of those squares looking like squares, you don't get it.
But the top one too, was that one?
Because the top squares are cut off. You need that square in the square.
I'm like hitting the one I printed, but if it's working, I just print it off. Is it working for yours?
Right on this one.
That one was the old one, that one works.
No, that's the new one.
This one's the new one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, very
Yeah,
good,
that's the new one.
very good. So you're, yes, this is my printing, because this is how I printed the old one, same layout there. All right. No, perfect, never mind then. Very good.
The only thing I see is, Freedom Valley is a different color. The URL for it. There's a different black than the rest of the blacks.
I rerolled it.
Look at my there.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now, I'm starting to see it. But at the same time, I know my kids see things I don't, but you know, hey, that's good. You know what that, that's great. I definitely use a Valley shot. All right,
Fortunately, this color mishap will be printed in the newsletter.
no worries.
Yeah.
I think it was great, as long as that QR code's going, my error is good.
That half the population would maybe. Why is it?
And yeah, that, the only other comment I want to say too, on that, Grace, is that great job, really, I know you moved things around, made it work without, you know, ever saying, I don't think we could do that, or absolutely, we got it, and really appreciate your work on this. Everybody's contribution too. It's good. Any other comments or questions with the version 3 of our QR code?
Do you think we can get it out to everyone?
Well, it will go out to everyone the first week of June.
Okay,
It's-
good.
It's like the first page in the newsletter.
That is excellent.
I think the only other thing that we do is just update it and anything that we have, which presumably might be updated already in the lobby, or if not, once the new things, stuff like that. I don't know if we have any in any kiosks right now. I should, I know we did, I just went by them recently too, and I just don't think I,
And at least some of them, the ones I pass are laminated.
yeah.
They hold up much better even in kiosks.
We'll just make sure they're updated, but that's a great point. These going out in the newsletter is fantastic. A lot of resident members, businesses. Any other questions on the QR or comments? Work, everybody, on that. Thank you. You know, we went back and forth, but I think it pays off nicely, so very good. Okay, which brings us to our next new business, which new business A is revisit communications committee's core purpose for township ordinance. And I did write down a bunch from this. The one thing that was in the minutes and that I also noticed listening, that as you were reading through them, kind of, and again, I know I will say first, we got excited when this was created. Terry, you were on early as well. We were saying, hey, we could do this, we could do that. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, actually, we could do that. I'm like, oh, well, let's do that. And we, you know, that's what led to some of our resident portal, upgrades on our township website, our surveys. But one thing that was mentioned was nonprofits. And I was really glad that was mentioned. And I'm, you know, glad that we took out the resolution and we're looking it over again because we have been doing great work. But it's one of the things that I'm sure, you know, you all were thinking last time is too, is especially as I listened, I was trying to listen last week. And I thought, you know, one of the things that says, trying to find it on here. Be responsible, or here is be responsible for supporting the township to inform the community about its upcoming meetings, township-run community events, department announcements, and to the extent possible, public events serving the township run by nonprofit local organizations. So that is something I feel like we could do better with as a communications committee, particularly as, and, it's not that we weren't doing it wrong with getting all together, but things like the fair, that would be a great thing. Find ways to promote. Maybe, I don't feel like we missed an opportunity as we're figuring out where we're gonna do this in an organized way so we can do it right. And I think now that's something that we should have as our ultimate goal is let's be ready for that next year. We'll have ways and hack that maybe we can gradually do with smaller things or other events that could be big events too in our area. And I think that's worth talking about. You guys also talked about making sure the residents know about what channels we have and let organizations know what kind of channels we have. The Converse was mentioned and, where we can utilize that cross help, we'll promote you and promote to let people know we're doing this as well. Again, I wasn't here for most of that discussion, but it is under new business to continue. And I just wanted to open that up and remind everybody what I heard and took out of it. Immediately, I thought of things, we could go right to the nonprofit and brainstorm ideas. What could we do more? Mentions of, I know we talked about the idea of going to the MARC, having a communications committee little table or township table. And, if you are doing that, members of this we're excited about. It's not a requirement for the committee, but if you're able to attend, just kind of promote the QR code, get things out there. Obviously, that's there. Do we promote the MARC? How do we do things like that as well? I open that up to discussion. I think it's definitely worthwhile in the direction that we should really consider making sure that we can do and uphold this as well. So any comments where we'd like to go with this?
I think it's a good idea, but you already mentioned about having a table already at the
Yes.
We'll
market.
be there,
Yeah.
June 1st. So we just ordered a tablecloth. I'm starting to print some things for handouts, so if anyone has any ideas of maybe what should be on that table. I have it in my office. I just printed out different QR codes. I'll just go grab it.
While she's doing that, how's everyone interpret that statement of public events serving the township run by nonprofit organizations?
I think
Yeah. Serving the township is where my question is, right? So
I
the
think
number one, public events,
Mhm.
number two, serving the township.
it's a good question. And I think judging by when we did this in October of 2020, at that time during the pandemic, we were having people, we had some of our local churches reach out. We have food, how can we get this? And this, John asked the question, what would be very good idea.
Good, yeah.
But then all of a sudden it goes bing, 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 picks it all up. Pops up. But John had a great question of, what exactly public events serving the township run by nonprofit local organizations. I think, well, actually, as I say this, I can think of some more, but one thing I was saying is I think at the time, this was October of 2020, and we had a lot of people who were helping the township in a lot of ways. There was people donating foods, some of the churches, or ways we could pick things up. And, there was a lot of what can we do? And there's people still looking. So I think some of that, and some of them weren't so much by serving our township, there might have been, you can come up here and get free lunches. And that was something at some of the schools. We wanted to make sure people knew. So we put that stuff on our website. Anything that might be serving the township. Other ways, as I am saying this out loud, is we have events. I know Holly mentioned one on the last meeting, such as recycling as we're in political season, the township, recycling your things. That's a great opportunity. Maybe tree collecting. Well, that's the township that does that. But I know it's a nonprofit that does the medicine drops. They come dump your medicine in here. I know I'll drive by Franconia. I've seen them blinking on their lights. Here's an event where you can dump any unused medications you have. Perhaps things like that. And it could be broader than that, but I think when we put this together, that was kind of the general consensus. We had a lot of people wanting to get their message out to the community of how we can help too. And that might be something that we don't always have. And that could be something that maybe we need approval. Obviously, we need approval on anything we're gonna promote, we go through the board too, the township staff. But, you know, is this something that maybe the board will say, hey, these, you know, this is something that here, there's an event, this will serve all of our residents, how can we help them with that?
And I think I think you guys are already doing a good job with it, because in the newsletter, it's always like
Yeah.
recycling events, you're always like for, you know, the township, where to go, like,
Right.
so.
And I think that's, you know, and like I said, is what I didn't say, but what it says here is just supporting the township, you know, in any way we can support the township to reform. That's all them in there and kind of,
Certainly.
that's,
So if you can think of ways that we can, communication committee can help enhance that, because I think you're already doing a good job of getting the message out. If people read the newsletter, you know, so that's the thing, it's. I guess our vision may be to look at other ways to get the message out that's already not being addressed.
and- yeah, and I think that's really sums up, and I know one of the things mentioned was, I think Harry mentioned was the core set, the stone and stuff like that, and I think that really serves that whole purpose is, you know, a lot of times people go to the website, oh, I didn't know, and it might be something like, I didn't know I could get discounts for an amusement park, I didn't know I could get discounts for this. We have all that at the township. These are things, honestly, that as I became more involved in the township, started going to meetings prior to my capacity now, it's like, oh, well, I didn't know that. And, you know, asking, did you know we have this? And I still said that to people, and I'm sure if any of you would have a conversation, someone says, I can get that there.
So,
But yeah, Grace is.
so if we, you know, if we reach out to nonprofits, so brainstorming, you know, we come up with a list of, and we specifically reach out to them, hey, nonprofit, right? You know, we're the communication committee. Objectives are to improve communication between, you know, the township and residents, but, right, another objective is to improve communication between nonprofits serving the township and the residents. Right?
Yeah.
What can we do to help you? What can we do to help you as a nonprofit serving the township? And I'm assuming that, you know, I would define that term loosely. If they have any township residents on their nonprofit, they're serving the township, right? Yeah. So if, you know, and so is that something that we do, right? Is, you know, so that we, you know, whether it's a specific letter, as we did our business letter, right? But it's a letter directed to nonprofits serving the township, right? And essentially say, okay, hey, this is who we are, you're a nonprofit serving the township. What can we do to help you connect with residents?
I like that idea. At the same time, I think of other things that we would have to consider too. I know we wouldn't necessarily be able to reach everyone or think of one, oh, there's another one. Oh, I didn't know about this one. And that's something that innocently, we could word it that, hey, we keep learning, you know, that where we could word it, but that is something that might affect some people as well. Another thing that I think maybe down the line, that might be a good idea too, but I'm curious, before I can clarify whether that is a good idea, how do we get information currently? You know, right now, maybe our goal would be to promote things that the township has already endorsed or is already, you know, this is something that's come our way. Grace, maybe you have an idea of how we get some of our information, say there's a recycling event, does that come from the county? Is that, or do we say, or does the township reach out to nonprofits, as John said? I just wanted to find that first, but, you know, and again, it's a great idea, but the only other hiccup that would be too is we got a lot right now too, and that's one extra step, whereas, you know, is it going out to residential facilities, we know there are people there living right there. Yes, we're going to help. There might be a nonprofit that says, hey, we have this for all your residents who don't, we want to give it to them, and that's a great thing, but again, I don't know how we find them, so it is a fine line. I'm curious first how we find them there, if you could fill us in.
I think it depends on the event. Especially like for Holly, she's someone who's been here, if she knows it's recycling event season and she hasn't
Right.
gotten anything, she'll reach out. But typically people are pretty good with reaching out themselves. Like the Mennonite Heritage Center, they will send me things for press releases pretty often, I can put in the newsletter, so. I mean, I think people don't know that we can help promote their events on their behalf, but for people who do, they will probably reach out. So it is both ways, as you mentioned.
So another thing then, John, and just to go back to you and I'll give it back and tell me what you think is, maybe another idea is, instead of necessarily reaching out to finding individuals, is making it known to come to us in a way, you know, maybe our campaign would be, hey, nonprofits, if you're serving our township, let us know. And then we could kind of do the curveball where we can take it and say, you know, because same thing I've learned as we passed our no solicitation bill, we were having people go around township, you know, okay, we have to approve, the police would get it and say, yes, we checked this one, but, you know, we could do that via the township then. If somebody comes to us and they can look at it and say, this isn't a legitimate one. Fortunately, you do run into stuff like that. And if we run a campaign, I'm sure we'll get some things that might not be necessarily serving the township, but this way the township could take a look at it as well, say, here's what we got, here's what we think would be great, and we can discuss from that as well. But that's another idea. I like what you're saying too. I just think of the logistics of that would be probably harder to put together. What are some opinions on that? And thank you, Grace. That's interesting to know too.
I think that may be the way to go, like letting people know, our job would be letting people know that they can come to us for, you know, advertisement to other nonprofit that needs to be, that they're addressing.
Yeah, in terms of finding out the population of nonprofits who serve the township, maybe if we do another survey, we actually ask the residents. What are the nonprofits, organizations that you participate in? Something like that. Anyway, I'm not sure. It's
Yeah.
I'll have to start with a Google search and see if there's any way of kind of coming up with a rough cut of what that population was.
And I think it's worthwhile if there is something that, you know, that comes to our attention, that is a worthwhile thing, because then we have to be very careful too when it comes to, you know, serving the township. And believe me, I donate to causes. I'm sure we all do too. But, you know, and I don't want to use anyone as an example particularly, but we'll just say, you know, cause A treats people who suffer, you know, this disability or whatnot, you know, and you know, I have family members that, you know, will support, you know, foundations that do that. However, is that something that we want to say, you know, this supports our township? Yes, we have a resident here, but are we looking more, and, you know, hopefully I'm wording this right, are we looking more for something of, again, this one is going to be happening in our township, bringing recycling to us, you know, an event kind of say, or more nonprofits that are more like a food bank, you know, that might have opportunities for those who are underprivileged to have an opportunity to know that they can have resources. So I think there's a line there too, you know. You know, you look at, like, I'll just say any kind of cancer thing as well too, you know, and we just had an event that, you know, you guys know, I did an event that went to Cancer File, so I'm obviously for that. That's why I'm saying that is reasonably discussed. However, there is a line that we can only do so much as well with the capabilities we have, you know. And I think that's something why it might be good to channel through the township and see that opinion. I want every nonprofit, you know, to help, but I think when it comes to serving, it is kind of extent there. And I think, so I guess the answer to the original question is, what does that mean? What was that for? I guess it is broad, but particularly I think what was happening during COVID, and as that, you know, any other situation in the future, hopefully we don't have to do that again, but, and also then the fact of any kind of recycling events, or, and Grace, if you can think of another example of something we might have nonprofit that come here more often, maybe some of the churches, I know some of our, like LCBC, they came to us and they offered meals, you know, for families at the time, and how can we let people know we have meals here? So things like that. Oh, okay, perfect.
So just
I just
Using-
couldn't think of anything similar off the top of my head.
So, just you trying to get some examples here. So, a Boy Scout troop. I mean,
Yeah, great.
nonprofit organization, right? Um, Let's assume that they don't run public events. It says public events, right? That we're focusing on public events serving the township run by nonprofits.
I have a perfect example. I mean, hop over you, but you did mention it last time and I looked down at it. The Heckler Plains or the Historical Society, another one to add to it. But you know, that's a great example because they do the ice cream social this night, which isn't necessarily the township, but we obviously support that too. Sorry, I just thought of that, but there might be one there.
But that's, right, so there is, it's a public event. So, so we're not looking to simply support the nonprofit,
Right.
right? We're looking to support or help with the communication of public events by nonprofits.
That is
So,
benefiting.
so we're not just helping a scout troop increase membership, right?
Right.
But if a scout troop has an event within the township that benefits,
Mhm.
then we essentially can say, hey, troop, what is it, 91? Troop 91. Right? What can we do to help communicate this public event to our residents?
No, and these are ones we can absolutely reach out to, the ones on our list as well. That's a great point that you went to the Boy Scouts. And as you said, we're not necessarily supporting them, but if they're we're picking up your canned goods, put them out at your mailbox along with the fire, you know, or they do it separately, actually. The fire company does it around Christmas, but the Boy Scouts do it too. And yeah, that's a great point. But at the same time, we don't want to say the Boy Scouts are, and I don't think they do this, but the Boy Scouts are having a car wash today. That's not necessarily what, you know, because that's something that, how's that going to help me? Yes, I get my car washed, but you know, obviously we want people to donate to their charities, but that way we're not forcing any kind of thing. But yeah, I think.
And that's the thing, I think we have to have our ducks in a row, in agreement, at least within this committee, that,
Right.
where's that line drawn, okay? All right, scout troop, right? Food drive, right?
Yeah.
We're on board, we can, you know, let's talk about how we can help you. Car wash, right?
Girl Scout cookies, we'll buy them personally, but we're not gonna tell everybody you're standing out there
Right.
today.
Girl Scout cookies is
Yeah.
another one. Where
Again,
do you draw that line, and how do we define this so that we're clear and consistent in talking to these groups?
So I think one element of a sufficiently mature nonprofit is they're already putting out those feelers. And any nonprofit, because I hear the reluctance to reach out and then have a bunch of questionable little, like, why are you doing this? I think by the time they reach out to you and the Mennonite, what did you say?
Heritage.
The Heritage Center reaches out to you, they know they can do that. They're a mature organization that says, you know, if we talk to the township is probably gonna have some resources available for us. I think if you start doing the letters and the outreach, you're gonna get folks that aren't thinking too far ahead and they have immature nonprofits and they go, oh, well, I can just hitch my wagon to the township and they'll carry me along, which is not what you want.
Right.
You want somebody who already understands their mission, they already know how to accomplish their mission, and you're just saying, you know, we are here to facilitate and have a mutually beneficial relationship, right?
Well, we're here to try and help them connect with our residents, right?
Right.
You know, that communication channel, right? You know, in this case, between residents and this nonprofit public event specifically.
And if their mission is to serve the public through, you know, putting on those events or providing some service, then they get to fulfill their mission and the township gets the benefit to residents. And it's like that two-way street. You always want it to be that two-way street because otherwise one of them's taking advantage of the other.
Another option, as you said that, Rob, fire company, not officially associated with the township, we support it. And, you know, they have when you mentioned the Mennonite Heritage Center, I know their day, which technically the Mennonite Heritage Center too, not technically, Mennonite Heritage Center is in Franconia. It's just across, it's right on the edge, so here's Franconia, and it's on Yoder, so here's Franconia. On the other side is Lower Southford. However, we walk from the Mennonite Heritage Center over to the firehouse because they're almost always the same Saturday. And, you know, people go back and forth. Some people, oh, we start there and we go here. So it does, you know, serve the township. That's something that the town, they've already been using, but we definitely want to find that line of any kind of thing like that as well. You know, it is not in the township, is it promoting the township? But I think this is a great discussion. I don't want to stop the discussion, but I like the idea too of, I think what I like too is just another idea is let's start with what we have currently. But make known, hey, we're supportive, or reach out to, again, the ones that we're already deemed so close with the township. And they were mentioned in these, the Heckler Plains Folk Life Historical Society have a lot of events. If anybody is watching this or anybody in here hasn't gone to them, they're worthwhile. The plant sale, the ice cream social, Heckler Fest, you know, great opportunities that you can't get more. Let's get into the township, you know, than that as well. And then some of these other ones, the Indian Valley Chamber of Commerce does a lot to serve the public as well. Just announcing new openings, all that stuff. I think it's worthwhile to possibly reach out to them and hopefully get ourselves known as, oh, look at that, Lower Salford, they promote their events. Maybe I should let them know, because I've helped run and, you know, been parts of nonprofits, and maybe somebody else has here too. One of the first things I do when I get we get a dinner table meeting or whatnot is, who we reach out to, who we reach out to. And then you try to find who is it that's going to push our event. If we become known as that person, whereas they regularly see, oh, look at this, we're advertising this drop. Hey, here's a food drop here, here's a recycling event. We might just become inadvertently, oh, we'll get more information as well. So that's another hopeful thing too. That's kind of where I'm leaning towards this now too. And I'm really glad we're talking about the nonprofit, because this is something that when it was put together was a great example of, as you said, Terry, we have all these great things in our township, whether it be tickets or whether it be this event. How do we get that out there more? In regards to serving, it could change over time as well. As John alluded to, this is how we feel consistently right now. Maybe in the future, there could be a different feeling on there. I think the wording kind of leaves it up to interpretation, and I'm not too opposed to leaving it as is rather than really breaking it down. I think this is a healthy conversation, and I think, you know, others would do the same.
So is there a definitive takeaway? How do we
Yeah,
wrap
so
up that whole conversation? Is there something specific that we add to our backlog, which we also wanted to review and discuss?
Yes.
Is there some specific action out of this?
Well, is this something that's a great point. Do we want to put something onto the agenda in the future meetings of and again, we don't want to just run into let's have the same conversation, which is good, but we don't want to keep going around. Right. We don't we go around, we got it, that was good. We don't want to do it again, whereas we got the ideas, timelines. But yeah, I mean, we could ask everybody to look it over, whether we want to find, I'm okay with the wording as is. I think continuing the conversation, but John says, yes, we could leave the wording, you make a point. And what?
Oh,
So what do we do
I
next?
have no intention of changing the
Right.
wording of, I mean, this is part of the resolution, right? I mean, it wasn't.
Right.
You know, in any way, my intention
Okay.
to change the wording. It's just, in talking about, you know, nonprofits, what is our next step in terms of nonprofits, and how does it fit that wording?
The discussion.
How do we support nonprofit local organizations doing public events?
That kind of goes to you, Grace, to how are they coming now? Do you see any holes in how they are able to communicate or reach out, or how you as the township are able to give them a consistent set of things that would help assist their mission?
I would say that it depends on the organization, because there are organizations that we work very closely, like the Heckler Folk Life Society. we're in contact with them constantly. They're at the park board meetings constantly, so we're always,
Fire company,
yeah.
because that, they update monthly with all meetings, so then sometimes we'll, yes.
If somebody came to you out of the blue, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if somebody picks up the phone and calls and puts out that feeler,
Mhm.
is there, like, are you able to have a conversation with them that says, here is what we have to offer? Like, does that conversation come easily? Is there something that could exist to support it?
well, it doesn't come often, so that- answer that appropriately, but there's not been a time where we've really turned down or turned away someone if they wanted us to advertise on their behalf. I'm thinking of the Harleysville kids running, whatnot. Yeah. Someone reaches out to me, I say, okay, and we put it on the next email blast. So that's how it typically goes, you know?
And that finishes their loop with a relatively small request, and then bigger stuff like Heckler Plains that's already here and already well established, they have that regular back and forth with you. And you, I'm guessing you haven't really seen that evolution from something that started small or started as an outside inquiry and became that larger thing, because it sounds like that's the mission of this, is that somebody comes along and says, we need a help up, and you go, here's the basket of things that we have to offer you, and let's have that continued conversation.
Yeah, I just haven't run into that a lot. Experience. Been here for so long, so I haven't been able to see an organization grow from ground up.
And the basket of things, again, bringing it back to this committee, the basket of things is that list of communication channels, right? There's,
Is that the limit of the basket of things that?
Really?
for us,
Sure.
right?
But we can also communicate things that we don't specifically offer, or help the township communicate things that are not communication.
That brings us back in what you said, the things that were taken away, I might have said or not. Residents know about channels we have, let organizations know about the channels we have, is what was said during the last meeting too. And I think that is what brings us back. Rob, you have a good point there too, in what Grace said. You know, supposing somebody, and I'll use the same example, God forbid, you know, I lost a younger cousin to cancer. You know, when he was suffering, we had some fundraisers. If there's a fundraiser or something, they forward it, sure, you know, we'll promote it. That goes back to what we're doing is, if we just continue to promote anything that the township might have for now, we might get more things coming in as well. You know, we might not have to reach out to so many nonprofits, but let's just make sure that we make it an effort in our steps forward, that when we have something come in, maybe we have a process. Grace, you might have someone come in and say, hey, guys, this is a new one that we're putting out. And then, you know, do we have channels in place that we could talk about at another meeting, say, okay, when that comes in, we put it out here, do we put it on our big board, you know, maybe not something like that, but maybe newsletter might be another level, okay, that's another level of communication. Emails, simple, okay, this is a resident wants to share this, sure, we'll share it for you, we got a great email chain. But maybe it's the fair, might want to put that in the newsletter, maybe they're the channels we should explore. It might be I can't think of something else that would make the signage, but yeah, I mean, maybe there's a major event that nonprofit like the fair, maybe the fair should be on there. There is fair on the side, country fair days, you know, coming up. So things like that.
Who runs the fair?
The JC's, yeah.
And the fair is a good example, because it's massively supported by the police department, all the local fire department.
You'll be there anyway, right?
An organization were to have a choice between Lower Salford Township and another township to set up something similar, or to come in and say, this is also something that we want to do, would they look at Lower Salford Township in doing their research and say, this is a place that is going to work with me, as opposed to, I don't know what they're going to offer for our organization to participate inside the limits of the township. And again, this is just brainstorming, I don't want to get too far.
No, this is what we do.
Yeah.
But, and another good thing too is maybe we have, I hate to say like, but a level, I don't want to say level of urgency, because anything that somebody submits is obviously important to them, and we want to help them get that out as most possible. That's their most urgent issue. But when it comes to how we want to advertise it, that could be something that could be a parameter to the board, or maybe the board, I would think, hey, I'm not gonna micromanage, I would trust the staff, their familiarity, might wanna pass on to that. Whereas the staff might say, oh, communication committee, here's an event, this is a A level or a B level or 1, 2, 3, and that could be, this one needs to get out. Big push, higher means maybe just newsletter, maybe it's us who decides what the level is. So I think these are things, one way we could go with it. Another thing is, again, I'm brainstorming too, because back to the channels, what are we gonna do when we get these? What do we have in place? Do we have a method in place right now? Let's forward this. Well, maybe that one, we might think, hey, that's one maybe we wanted even more people to get, and those who don't get their email, this might be a text message. Obviously, we want to save them for emergencies, but if we have that option, as we're trying to see, yes, I want only emergencies or I want updates. So I think that's another thing to consider. How do we get that out? What level of degree is that?
And I think,
Go ahead. And in the end, just closing that, I think it is important that we explore how, yes, I think we're in agreement. Let's promote these. How do we want to do that in the best way?
and I think
And
it's
where
back to
we're-
what Rob put together, because
Yeah.
depending on each population,
Exactly.
it will be a different way of how we're communicating the message.
And maybe what we learn with Rob's is it might be standard to email. Yes, I say, okay, this is this level. It's a simple one. That's simple for me, but for somebody else, they're gonna miss that entirely, which brings us back to our purpose of saying, well, here's the channels we have. And, that's, maybe we are supporting the nonprofits inadvertently already by making sure that we're reaching all the
Exactly.
residents. And,
Mhm.
that's something we're doing, but maybe I think as a group, we're all talking that we want to make sure that that is something.
I think that's our main thing, instead of going out and looking for nonprofits. I think communicating to make sure everybody gets the message
Mhm.
in different ways, like however they access the message is more important than us like going out and trying to find nonprofits and say, okay, do you want us to advertise something for you? Or, because it's already, I think we're doing a lot already, like if you, like the email blasts we get and the newsletter, there's a lot of information in there. The question is, are people all getting that information if they're not reading the newsletter, if they're not getting the emails?
Right.
So,
And it could be worthwhile though, too, to, as John said, maybe just reach out to the ones on here, just as a friendly reminder, let them know, hey, we're supportive of you. We want you to support us and we're gonna push your stuff. Just because I know we even got, somebody might have missed the newsletter that month, but they got the Union Valley Chamber of Commerce thing, which has Franconia, Lower Southford, and you all saw, we have our quick reference guide in there, so it reaches even a more bigger platform and costs the township no money, seeing as they're sending it out. So I think these are.
Maybe for next meeting, please confer with Holly. It might be interesting at a very top level, just to know whether the township already hears from these folks, right? I mean, do you have any interaction, any contact, not you, but the township,
Yeah.
right? With the YMCA? Right? I mean, if they do an event, would you expect to hear from them? Fire company. And, but, just as you say, using this as a starter
Mhm.
and just using common knowledge between you and Holly, like you already said, the Heritage Center, I mean, the Folk Life Society, yes.
Watershed Conservancy, that's another one I didn't even think of till you mentioned going through that, they do events.
in the library.
Maybe just, just a quick answer, right? I mean, yes, we hear from them. No, we've never heard from them.
And some
I
might
could
be.
say, sorry to interrupt, I
Please
could
go.
say we've probably heard from 50% of people on this list.
Okay,
Mhm.
So
so I was curious
maybe
if some
we're
might only be yearly or every few months, or, but the fact that you know that much too is, that's great.
Handful of these have representatives at
Last few meetings.
the last few meetings.
I know,
So,
absolutely.
we got the library for sure,
We had a scout there this morning,
Freedom Valley Medical Rescue,
Mhm.
Scouts,
the fire company.
so they are showing up.
And we did at the Folk Life, we had them last time as well. Which now have a new name, I think, officially, but.
There's two they've
Yes.
merged, there's a lot longer of a name.
Yes, we can get that for next time. They're doing some good stuff.
We did always get this out, everything we
So this is out. I'm gonna say, that's why I said, for the next time. And they just changed it. It's just, they actually just announced it like a Sunday or two ago, but a month
A
ago.
year in the making.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we got that done. I think, you know, I didn't even notice the time now, but, this is, I think this is a lot that we've said here, which is great. And I'm not, you know, I think this is great brainstorming. But it's important to cover this because there's something we haven't touched about before, and I think now we know some ways to approach that. I'm good for maybe kind of finishing up this discussion, maybe, everybody kind of brainstorm their ideas of what they've gotten out of this discussion that would help benefit that next one time. And we'll reference back to what other additional information that Grace would provide us from the township standpoint as well. Anything else on nonprofit? And there's so much more I want to continue saying, but I think we've covered a lot there for now as well. Okay. And we keep this next one a little short as well, if you want here, exploring future topics, projects for the communication committee. These were talked about at length last time. I really enjoyed hearing all the different things. One thing that was discussed with future topics is the website, how much it's hitting us. Out of the 2,000 I heard from January till about now, we had 100 views. That's about 5%, or it is 5%. That's great, I guess. But do we check things that we've done? Were some of the topics that we had? What else was said? So we're brainstorming all groups, how it works. Our homework was to go look at the purpose of our ordinance and to study anything that anybody had any questions with. And yeah, that's kind of where we left. That's kind of the summary there, but list has everyone look over. So yeah, have everybody kind of look over the list and see if there's anything else, you know, that they wanted to bring attention to. What are the main purposes? What is the main study? This is something that we could go into now. I know that we could probably talk a bit about. And I can lead us to the committee, seeing as we are missing two, and as we are in a time thing, I'm okay with, waiting till we have, more of a say, because I think we get more out of this kind of conversation. But,
I think we
20
need
minutes
more time
over
too.
yeah, I realize that as well.
Down to
Yes.
people, so.
I think it's a good one to continue for next time, and that leaves us with some stuff on our agenda for next time as well. Just to recap, and we will go back into closing as well, but just to recap for closing, is it okay if we move on to closing then? So for closing as well, to recap, one of the most important things we want to do is just follow up on, what was the first thing we have? Follow up on our associate member. We'll check with the township with that, and we'll get an email out to Harry and Jess, and we'll encourage them to take their opinion on this. Again, I like both of your ideas where both were standing. I want to hear what they have to say. I could be swayed either way with this one, but it is something that I just want clarification before we pass this through. And then ideally, that'll be on at the next board meeting. Additionally, we will check to see the wording with our solicitor here, that we might be able to add one more as well, and make sure that that's all okay wording wise with the board too. QR code is good. It's out to go. I think everything else has been discussed and we should be good. Anything else anybody would like to add? I just want to thank everybody again for covering last time, John. Great job and great discussions. And I appreciate everybody's time. I know leaving the fair to come here, and you know everybody has something going on tonight. So I always appreciate that. It's a good
Can't survive with it.
Well, it was a good meeting. Any other questions or anything else to add for the evening or any purpose for
I
the
move we close.
as a motion?
Second.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Get comfortable, I guess. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Our next meeting will be the third Wednesday of next month.
Yeah.
June, thank you.
Not the way.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Yes.